we want to reach a solution. The question is, what is the proper solution? And, I think, we've heard that, and the safety is important, and it's both traffic safety and all the other kind of safety, which you alluded to, which is true also. We're just trying to make it the most efficient way, and I think working with the city, working with them, we gotta come up with something, because ultimately, I think the example I use just seems visual. When whoever paid for it, and I know it wasn't the landowners, and the city must have done it, or most of it, or a lot of it, expanding, widening Bartlett from, let's say, Jackman all the way to Del Mar. Why did the city do it? Because McPherson was jammed to the gills, right? So who benefits from that? A lot of people. And who gets penalized? Well, not just it would have been unfair for the landowners in front of that, property solely to pay for it, and they're not using it. The whole city uses that going north. And the idea that somebody's gonna be saddled, in my opinion, and it should be, that like Mr. Reeves was saying, the people that will be saddled with paying for this, because ultimately it comes down to the consumer who buys those lots. So then, ultimately, if that roads get expanded, the number of lots that are going to be done in that is very limited, just by the topography. Then you end up with a creek, and then you end up on the other side. So if you build too big of a road, it's going to go for naught. That's all we're saying. And understanding all the issues, whether it's 1 hour, I mean, in my opinion, just because of the other, not the traffic safety, but the otherwise, I mean, there should be no parking signs on the street in every school. You don't want somebody sitting in front of your school for an hour and a half. I mean, it might be, the parent that's there, and that might be true, but it's one thing. I mean, you don't want them there all day just because you don't want somebody there in front of your school all day. So, and I understand why people do it. They want to be first in line and out the first way, but you've got to get them off the streets, because the streets are to go through. And the idea, I mean, the practicality. One is the movement of the school hours, the morning and the afternoon. That's the whole deal. But if not, from there on out, the traffic should be ideally going through, and somebody's off out of the way, and it should be temporary. So we're willing and we understand. I mean, we've always worked with LISD in a bunch of different ways. The bank has always supported UISD. We have school projects. We have all kinds of stuff that we do. So we don't want to be in contra, with UISD.
We'll work as a
right.
community and partners.
So we're trying to get the best cost, and I think whether it's 3, 4, or something, or the structure of the street itself, which I think that then that's where the city comes in. The 5-lane, under my understanding, and I'm not far from being an engineer, but the 5-lane initially, it required all kinds of different kind of thickness of cement and grading and all that kind of stuff. All we're trying to get the cost down for both sides, and we try to keep the cost down ultimately to the ultimate people that will be paying for it, which is that little stretch of people that are going to be buying those lots, where they're not in 3 years or 5 years or whatever it takes, ideally in a shorter period of time. But just to say one more time, the growth is limited in that area. If you're going to get much traffic, it's going to be, if that road ever gets built and connects the other way, and it's not even going to be that much. It's going to be people going through. So I think we all probably talked this thing to death, and I think we probably just need to meet the three of us with the city and see if we can come up with something that works for everybody.
Sure.
So the
point out, I'm sorry.
I was just going to mention that I'd like to thank all the citizens for your input this evening. We have spent about 90 minutes discussing this item. I think we've had a good, healthy amount of input from both perspectives. From my perspective, it's both sides have presented very compelling arguments and positions on this. I think that you've done, your respective interests a good serviced by the amount of detail that have been provided in perspective.
Just want to point out a couple things real quick. So, the 4-lane option also was one that the city entertained and still entertains. I mean, we still have reached out and proposed that as well. In fact, when the 5-lane design at the plating process was tabled, we quickly approached to say, can we work out something, even a 4-lane design? And not knowing even what the school would say about that. So that's been on the table. That's something that we're quickly able to discuss. One, just for that purpose of discussion. But the other two, I think there's a procedurally as well. We're in a bit of a quandary technically, I think, because I think for the plating to work, you need the owners to sign. And I think both owners need to sign on the plat itself. And so that's why having both owners here and not having a middle ground, we're more than willing, wanting to facilitate and be a part of that. But as you've heard, it's a rather intricate dance between all interested parties. But that still remains on the table with the 4-lane design that we have offered, and we'll continue to work this through. Technically, again, please correct me if I'm wrong, I think this, being that it was tabled at final, it can only go back if it's going to be reintroduced at final the way it is, or it gets redesigned or reintroduced through the process again in whatever form it's going to be. And so I think those are the two options. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the two options. Either it goes back for formal or final the same way, or it gets redesigned and then submitted once again and goes through the planning process once more. So just wanted to set the stage.
No, Mr. Eads, what about Mr. Farias mentioned the design of the street itself? Has that been reviewed? Because apparently there is some additional cost that may be over.
It
might be over designed. Is that something that the city can look at as well?
The actual cross section, if you will, of the actual roadway itself, there are requirements. There are a couple gentlemen here that know exactly. They'll read it off verbatim. We can go into another 90 minutes on that. But there's a minimum set requirement. In fact, I think there's been a change even to that requirement to even, I believe, bring that down. I don't know if that's formally been approved.
The issue that we have that exasperates the problem is that when you have a 5-lane road, you have to prepare for 3 million easels. So what does that mean?
3 million?
3 million easels. They call them equivalent single axle units. So what does that mean? You basically have a runway that needs to be built on that road to handle that much traffic. So not only is it the width of the pavement, the fact that when pavement doesn't get used, it atrophies much quicker. In other words, the pavement kind of works better when it's got a little bit of weight on it. I'm not an engineer, I'm not a traffic engineer. We hired, or the bank hired, the engineers to handle the study. They said, and when we called them back, they said you don't need more system there. So we're putting, more. Number one, we're putting more roadway, and number two, when you designated the roadway, there is nothing in the development code that says, yes, we have a 90-foot back-to-back, but really the traffic units on this is nowhere near the traffic units that are going to be on a McPherson, that are going to be on a Del Mar Boulevard. So all of a sudden, not only are you having to make it wider,
You have to make it thicker.
you have to make it
And
thicker.
that's why I think for us to come to an agreement, which we want to do that, we need the city to be part of that, because it's one thing to go, like we say, wide. There has to be recognizing the traffic that will actually be on it, and not build
Yeah,
depth-wise like it's going to be
And
a tremendous
and
traffic.
what I
when
tried
it's
to
not.
point out at the
So
beginning.
the city would have to kind of agree
Right,
somewhere.
what happens when you have the city
We'll put it on
designating,
them.
in other words, they're designating this area to capture the traffic all the way through, right? So in the land development ordinance, when the city requires that, which was part of the beginning statements, then the city, we can petition to the city to pay for those improvements. Because if you charge the 600 families for those improvements, it's a rough distribution. It's unfair. It's unfair for a few residents of that area to pay for the benefit of, of the city of Laredo. We've provided the land that when and if there is the amount of traffic on there, then the city can go and pave it. They already have the land. They're not gonna have to go back, and say, oh, Mr. Developer, will you give us this land? Oh, no, you don't wanna give it to us? Well, then we have to do this.
We're waiting at LBJ, please, the city can go build that, because we're waiting for the other 2-3 lanes.
No, but they built,
Everybody
they
says
built
they
Bartlett,
have
they built Bartlett's and they concrete Bartlett besides, so I don't know
Yeah.
pay for that.
Mr. Eves, I have a question.
Yes,
The
sir.
5-lane requirements that Mr. Reese is referring to, the depth, and would that also apply to the 4-lane? Or would the 4-lane change the requirements?
Yeah, it does.
It's
change.
less.
Yeah, but it's,
That's
but
why
it's,
we
but
request.
it's considerably more than a local collector.
But that's why we just have to meet the
So,
three of us and talk,
it's
and
three
talk,
three
talk
times more.
details, and then, if the road serves the needs of the traffic that's expected on it, that's what I think should govern it. The width maybe is one thing, the depth's another, but I think we gotta sit and just talk the details with the city being involved in that aspect of what they can do to.
What happens is, you go from, 300,000 easels, I think is what we got on the collector. You go from 300 to 2 million easels. That's the gross discrepancy in the pavement design between a local collector, which is what we're proposing in there, which is 3 lanes in front of the school, and then choking down to 2 past the school.
Yeah, but let's not get back
Yeah,
into
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Let
yeah.
us
All I'm
focus
saying
on-
is,
we're all
you
all
go
over- we're all-
from 300,000 to 2 million. That's the difference.
Look, we're gonna work with the
Yeah.
city, if you
That's
all
what we-
approve whatever, we're always wanting to do what the city mandates and what are the requirements. We've always done
And
that.
that's, and.
And that's the spirit of coming up to a solution.
Right.
But we just did what we were told we had to do.
Right.
So, I think everybody's fed up with
We took all your meeting.
We just have some other business we have to cover tonight as well, so.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
My phone?
Thank you all for your time.
No,
sir, don't worry.
Actually, it was very informative. You presented it very well. Okay, we'll go through the rest of it real quick.
Are we closed there? Was that the?
Yes, sir, no.
I relinquish the gavel back to the chair.
Well, unless you wanna take care of item 1. And now that we're there, because I still can't.
Thank you.
I still
Oh, I see.
can't, yeah,
Okay.
let's do that and then. we'll
So
go
we have
through.
one more discussion possible action on point number 1 in section 6. The designation of a no parking zone between the hours of 8 AM to 5 PM at the section of the street on the south side of the 2000 block of Lane Street from Malinche Avenue to 40 feet west of Malinche Avenue. We have, we can do that.
Next to high school?
No, sir. This is over here in South Laredo. It's in South Laredo. This property we're talking about?
Yeah.
It's in South Laredo.
Is this by Benavides Field? Or am I-
Yes.
By Marvel?
It's by Marvel.
By
It's
Marvel.
right in front of- That's the reason why I'm having to step back from this one as well, because it is a family.
Well,
emergency.
Have we reviewed that before? or?
I was gonna say, Mr. Chair, seeing that we do have, Mr. Garcia, who would have to step away from the conversation, you don't have the required, number, you don't have quorum to make a decision on that. I think you're 5.
There's 5.
Yeah. but-
Isn't 5,
One, two,
isn't 5?
3, 4, 5. Without him, it's
Without me.
6. He's
Without
6.
you.
No, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
We have a quorum.
Okay, yes. I'm sorry, let me pull this up.
Now, do I need to actually step out?
You look good, that's why you look like that.
It's the water. Should I step out?
For sure. No, you don't have to physically be, sir. Yes. So this is a modern machine. Mr. Murillo, if you wanna,
Yes.
I know you've been talking to
Can
the
you,
family.
can you go over here to the,
I mean,
I think there was a file, or
Yeah.
where is that file?
where do you have it on?
It's on the actual screen, like the
Oh,
background.
you got it on there.
It's right there at the bottom, next to that flag.
This one?
Yeah.
This folder?
Yes.
Let me get the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
We had this. We have a situation, Chairman, members of the committee, Roberto Murillo, the traffic department. We have a situation here that, I know it was on the last agenda, that there was no quorum, so we just brought it back. Basically, we have a request and we have a letter, that we got from Martin Machine Shop. It's on South Laredo, it's on Blaine Street. The problem they're having is, there's an entrance here to be able to access, some of the trailers deliveries. And they can't get out of that because there's a little section. Can you go to the pictures, please? There's some pictures that show probably a bit better. And maybe from the aerial, but this is just showing some pictures they submitted to us. See, it's just this little section, maybe 3, vehicles that are parking there in the intersection that doesn't allow them to be able to get in and out properly. Sometimes they have a lot of problems. Sometimes they have to look for the owners and they'll move the car, but sometimes it makes it difficult. They made a request that we consider putting a no parking from 8 to 5, which is Monday to Friday, which is what's being proposed and recommended by the traffic department. And we have a letter to that effect. Can we go to an aerial just to show quickly? So that's a request, and we are recommending that we pursue that. Again, it's 8 to 5. The last time we were able to have somebody go talk to the person that lives at the corner lot, and their access is really on the opposite side of the street. And they even mentioned they wouldn't bother them, they can park on the other side of the street, not a problem. And they're really the only one that would be affected. The other neighbor on to the right, we're not affecting their parking at all. It's only 40 feet, and we'll get here in a minute. It is right here. The no parking, we just basically this first lot, this frontage from this corner lot is right there. Really, the trucks have to be able to get in and out of here. All they were requesting is just the first lot, put no parking 8 to 5 Monday to Fridays. The owners of this, when we talked to them, we had somebody go from our staff and they said, no, we don't have a problem because they could always park on this side. So, it's not affecting these people here, this other lot. They can still park there if they have to. There's a driveway. So now can you do like a street level, please?
Sure.
There is the gate, the door that they're having a problem. So the only area would be this here, the little portion here.
So it's like 2 vehicles?
Yeah, it's about 40 feet, about 2 vehicles right here. They don't really need that area. Since you have that driveway, you can't park there anyway. So with this, they feel that that's all they need. We don't see a problem. Again, we spoke to the people that live there, and then you can see they're parking over here. They can park across the street. If we don't not affect them during the weekends, it would be just 8 to 5. Normally, 8 to 5, you have less vehicles parking in front of home because either they're working, going to school, whatever. But anyway, this is what they requested, and this is what we're recommending. And if the committee approves that, we'll take it to the council as an ordinance from this committee getting a recommendation, because that's what's being recommended.
And Mr. Woody, you mentioned that the owners they're pretty good with it. I mean, they don't have a
Yes,
problem
we
with it.
had somebody go talk to them, they said, we don't have a problem. We did advise them about the meeting the last time. They said, we don't, so in case they wanted to attend, they said, no, we have no problem with that, because they always park over here. And it's only, again, it's not all the time, just a time of day.
Because you notice the entrance to the property on this side.
Yeah, it's on the front.
There's nothing on this side.
Sometimes there are visitors that get to their house, maybe they'll park there. But other than that, they don't have a problem, and we don't have a problem, so we're recommending that we proceed with that.
So Chair would entertain a motion to make a recommendation to city on this item number 1, section 6. Any motions?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay. Do I have a second? Second, okay. Any further discussion as to, on this topic? None? Okay, let's move to vote. So, the motion is to approve the, item mentioned? Okay.
Designation of no parking zone as outlined in item number 1, section 6.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of recommending to the city that we move forward with the no parking zone as requested by the company, designate by aye.
Okay.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. And I relinquish gavel.
Thank you, Mr. Akers. Okay, guys, so we'll go to section 3, approval of minutes. Approval of minutes for the June 13th meeting. No meeting was held in July nor in August because lack of quorum. Can we get a motion from someone, from anyone? Can we have read it? Did we get provided minutes?
Yes, sir.
I didn't get minutes.
So June 13th.
Oh, yes, here it is. I apologize. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Yeah, I make the motion that we approve minutes as stated.
Thank you. Second? Okay, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes shall be approved as presented.
Mr. Chairman, we need a clarification. Who was
Oh, I'm
the motion
sorry.
we did second?
He,
Sure.
I move.
and then Selena.
Oh,
Okay, second. Thank you.
She beat you, sir. Okay, staff reports?
No staff reports. We have one communication, well, which would be under communication, right? So I've written all over my paper with notes. I apologize.
Okay, so section 5, communications?
Great. Mr. Akers?
So I submitted that, and this is more of a question for the committee. So I noticed that we have Erika doing a lot of scrambling to help motivate that we have good attendance, and she's doing a great job at that. We do have solid attendance at this committee. One thing that I made a mistake and missed an email about the cancellation of one of the meetings, the July meeting or the August meeting. The July meeting, and I showed up, and I was confused. I was like, it's on my calendar. Why? You know, I didn't see a cancellation. And then I later looked back and found there was a cancellation email sent. And I was just wondering if it might be the case, like at something I mentioned to Mr. Eads and to Edgar, was that it may be a hyper use of calendars by my company, but the way that we communicate availability, not able to attend. You know, I said that I could come, but now I can't come. You know, all of that's done through the calendaring process, and I wondered if that would be common among committee members. Then we could just use calendars rather than, and understand that that's how we confirm our attendance. Is we say yes to those calendar invites. If we then later can't come, we cancel it so that the committee's informed. It all appears that does. What's everyone else's use of calendars as far as do you prefer the email confirmation? Do we need it? Is using the electronic calendars feasible? What are your thoughts on that?
Calendars would probably be easier.
You like that?
And are you talking about like the Google? Is that what it is?
Really, anytime you send an invite, it populates whatever calendar you use. So I use Outlook Calendar, but if you use Google Calendar in your emails, it would go into your calendar. It would just be, if you don't use it.
I don't, but
Okay.
no problem.
Well,
I'll probably show up anyway, whatever thing we have.
Okay, I mean.
I'll call and ask which one do I press? Yes.
Well, I'm not trying to, impose something that's not comfortable.
No, that's fine, that's fine.
Okay.
If it's easier.
Well, that's it. All that means is that Erica will stop sending the please confirm, and if you have answered yes to the invite, then you're kind of self-managing, and you'll show up. Or if you,
Do
if
we
not,
need to
you'll
vote on
you'll
that?
advise.
Is that
No.
something?
No, really, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think going through the calendar is helpful. You're correct.
Let's try it.
So just sending out an invite for that specific meeting.
So it's on the calendar right now. Everyone who's confirmed has
Yes.
confirmed to be here.
Correct.
On the next date that's on the calendar. So we don't need reminders, in other words.
With the exception of maybe,
So if I don't get a reply,
A
like,
decline,
so
then you should expect everyone to be here.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So like, let me look.
Yeah.
well, while he's doing that, is there anything else that we need to communicate?
No, just real quickly on this, and I've added to some of the confusion of what had happened too,
Yes.
was that I had a set,
Recurring.
reoccurring meeting on everybody's calendar, one. And then as Erica joined us, you know, I kept mine, so now you've got two running ones. And so then as I decide, get my hands out of that kitchen, I deleted so did we not have a meeting, did we have a meeting? So I'm stepping away from that. If everybody can use the calendar system wherever we can,
Yeah.
that would help because we can actually check the invitee list and it actually shows confirmations, who's checked,
Exactly.
yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. It makes it easier for us as well.
Yeah, I think so too.
So I don't wanna.
So right, yeah, so right now,
Yes,
I haven't sent the reoccurring
you
invite
said
for the following
maybe,
meeting.
maybe.
So I'm gonna do that for
Maybe.
those coming meetings.
Means
and-
no.
Right, and we actually she's able to look on the calendar and look at everybody's name and say, you know, there's a red X on you, there's a maybe on you, and so we're able to keep track of that with.
Yeah, I found it.
It helps us.
So this coming meeting, I'm gonna send that reoccurring, because I just sent, just to let you know.
And one last, and I provided some information in your packet for you guys to look over, but we actually do have, because there was a question also about meeting dates and how those are selected, if we can kind of see which one works better, almost on a month-to-month type basis. And it makes sense. I mean, if we're able to kind of almost poll members to say, how's your, you know, second week of next month or whatever it may be, we're actually not allowed to do that, and for good reason. I mean, we do have, it's a public meeting, and so we try to establish norms, and so that people can get used to knowing that, hey, on that, you know, Wednesday, you know, on the month, I can expect that the meeting's gonna be held. It makes it difficult for committee members. What I think can happen though, and as you've seen through the attorney's memo that we received on how we should work these, if you all decide as a group collectively to say, you know what, just Wednesdays, you know, second Wednesdays, third Wednesdays of the month that don't work for me, I like Tuesdays better, and you guys want to change that, works well with us. We have to just establish that norm with city secretaries and establish that with them. But right now we have that set for this date.
I know that the committee before the new ones, we already had agreed to do the third Wednesday or the second Wednesday of each month.
Mhm.
It works for me, I mean,
Right.
I've already gotten used to it.
Right.
But before,
I think we should, maybe the next meeting as a communication, we look at attendance and decide on.
And for example,
I'm sorry,
for
no.
example, of a ending term of a council member, does that mean that they're like appointee also, like?
They stay
They stay?
until they get appointed.
Right,
Like,
and so there's an ability, I believe, from the incoming council members to appoint or reappoint, and they, if you're, reappointed by the new council member, you can be reappointed by the council member. And there's been current discussion at the council level within the last couple of months about just turning people out, saying, you know, we just need to rotate out some bodies. That hasn't been made a directive yet to force that, but there's even been discussion about that. It's not the case.
because
today.
I'm in that role, because my councilman's finishing his 8-year term.
But everybody loves you, sir, so.
Yeah.
What, so before, and we got really caught up in that conversation, and I appreciate the committee joining in and having that discussion, because that was needed with the other council, or with the agenda item. But, so I wanted to stand back from that and then get to our business. But join us today, and from now forward, we have our new bicycle and pedestrian coordinator, Mr. Alec Martinez.
Hey, how are you?
So he joined us 2 months ago.
What, last week?
Yeah, last week. Yeah, last week.
So tell us about yourself real quick. 20 words or less.
Just moved down from New York, originally from Laredo, but graduated out of Cornell University with a background in city planning. So they mixed me up. I'm supposed to be in the other office, but they're like, well, we'll go into traffic. Unfortunately. Really excited about the potential future of our city, how we can be competitive with a lot of other cities that people are moving to, what that looks like. Particularly from an economic and environmental sustainability standpoint, active transportation is really the name of the game for cities here on out. Problem is that, you know, for us it's about retrofitting. We've got a lot of stuff that's already built, so how do we do that? But really enjoying my time and looking forward to working with all of you.
So, and he's getting folded into all conversation, obviously, right? So, but even this conversation that we had on Laredo, because, you know, he interned or worked with the group that wrote, essentially composed the comp plan, the new comp plan. So
The new, what?
the comprehensive
The
plan.
oh, you were part of
Right,
that?
you know,
Independent consultant for that.
Right. So he understands the ins and outs and how it was built, why it was built, you know, how it all figures in. So when we talk about the previous comp plan or long range STIRF plan or all the stuff that we're talking about before and then the now, we're trying to bridge all that over as well. So understand that we don't only do things because it's been done before. In fact, we challenge that going forward to see what we can improve. And that's actually what we're here.
Like the Mines Road decision to put a bike lane on Mines Road.
Well, he's gonna figure that out by Tuesday.
Oh,
so.
And then,
Yeah,
they actually have a Mines Road. It's like Target.
Mr. Martinez, can you,
They can put one on 35.
Is camera on?
no, he didn't put in a new tape, sir, don't
No,
worry.
he did. And then, but obviously that question that Mr. Reese came up about the, changing that five lane on Country Club. Now they're using two, what's that about?
Well, again, there's a lot of discussion, we don't wanna get way too
That's
off topic
okay.
with all of this, but there's
Oh,
benefits.
benefits too, yeah.
There's benefits to a lot of it, and we hope Alec, provides us some insight and some recommendations, and we're gonna pick his brain. But then we're also gonna challenge him because we've got a lot of work in our office, a lot, and he's seen it. So we do a little bit of a lot, and so people only know us with the negative stuff.
Which is,
so
and I think your website's helping you change that.
we're trying.
It's
We're trying.
you need to promote those positive attributes that the city has.
I think
And
Alec
you guys
really
are
does.
trying. You
I think
are
Alec does.
trying.
Well, I think Alec's been charged with a lot of that social media as well, seeing that he's a couple years younger than some of us in this room.
Dominic is a token millennial.
Yes.
You know
We had to
this.
bring one in, right? Just check that box. Yes, we do. It's an HR thing, right? So, but now we're glad to have him on board, and so we're going to get him to work, or he's already working. But you'll see a lot more and hear a lot more from him too.
So I don't want to keep talking about this, but
I do.
But I'm dying to. I am. This is one of the most interesting topics that has hit the table, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think it's going to be a tough one to solve.
Mm.
I think we got to be careful in this committee to remember what the scope of our committee is, because we're getting into recommending that the school change their plans and all that. Yeah, that's really not. I have an opinion on that, but it's not this committee's scope to talk about that. So
I think, we're taxpayers, and, they need to look at the way they plan their schools and look at the way, especially on middle schools where kids don't drive, on how to keep them safe and how to pick them up and how to drop them off. And, you can have a 10-lane street and, everybody's just gonna park. And Del Mar is, you know, an example. The other school, what's the name of that street? Behind, where the Killam, development is, that school where there's a turn going towards, Loop 20.
Colonel's on.
Yeah.
That's a mess there. Yeah,
Yeah.
it literally goes.
We
back.
haven't had a huge accident there, you know, because we've been lucky, but,
Right.
you know, I didn't like what, Mr. Rangel said about, you know, not being required having a loop inside the school, but I think it should be required. I know it probably won't take all the cars as parents go in, but, you know, they need to help alleviate some of the traffic for the city.
Right. No, and what's intricate with this as well, and that's why, you know, even with this, it got real, it's not at the point where we like it to be, and quite honestly, we should be, challenged as a transportation committee, kind of to be looking at these long-range plans and thoroughfares. I will say though, at the point that we're at today, it makes it almost impossible for you all to kind of look at this and make any sort of assessment. And really, the reason too is that we're being challenged by all sides to be able to take a look at this and provide our opinion, because I wasn't kidding when they literally, you have to sign off on the plat. The owner does, and seeing that you have two owners, there has to be some sort of meeting of the minds. And so, you know, we have our set of rules that we need to follow and we provide, right? We have new rules or new guidelines that we're bringing in with, let's say, the new comp plan as well. So as we build from the old and come to the new, we're at that point. We're converging onto some new territory. Even new cross sections, how, you know, the requirements for different roads and roadway lengths is different from what we had 20 years ago. And we have a new plan. The problem is we have also this 5, 6, 7, 8 year plan that was rolled out in a certain way by all parties we believe involved, mostly them. And so I think when the last minute change happened, it kind of threw everybody off to say, well, we're okay, if not this, then what? And what happened was that everybody went to the corner. So now everybody's either 5 lanes or now 2 lanes. And we're saying, you know, that first of all, it doesn't make sense because you're not going to get there. And that's why we even offered somewhat of a middle ground. And it's going to end up being there. During the processes, we'll bring you as in the points where it needs to be, where the committee should have that input, because you actually do have the charge. But at the point right now where they're having to go back and replat this, or go back with the same one, it's a whole different level. And it's gone to a certain noise level that was one of the reasons also I wanted you to know this, because this has gotten legs. We had a very robust meeting this morning, a 2-hour meeting with probably 40 individuals at UISD. And it was interesting. We had elected officials, we had administrators, we had a whole bunch of people in that room. And we ended up kind of in the same spot. And so,
Because it's politics. They're not deciding, in my opinion, what the best course of action is. It's all politics on both sides.
so we hope to get them to meet in the middle, and I hope by at least carrying this, we understand some of the complexity that we're dealing with. But to answer or to provide some sort of response, Mr. Akers, yeah, I'll recognize when not to put you guys in an odd spot, because it's pretty heavy, and you got you know
We got a taste of it tonight, right?
well, but and to see, you know, yeah, but the complexity with what we're dealing with as a town. So.
That was my question, even though I'm not I'm not supposed to ask a question when it pertains to this, but I wanted to know what the city's position was, because we heard the two owners' positions, but we didn't hear what the city's position was.
Well, we-
Because basically, it's UIZ saying that they're just simply following the guideline that is the city's provided. It has to be a 5, and and these guys are saying, no, we wanted a 3. And then they said, well, we're willing to go to a 4, but depending on if the city's willing to.
Well,
to.
we had offered
Is
the
that
4.
correct?
Well, we had offered the 4, so that's been on the table, and I told Mr. Ruiz and Mr. Farias that as well, that 4, in fact, I told them, if we're to come to an agreement right now with a 4-lane designation, which that they're asking for, but if they were to agree to that, they wouldn't have to go back out and spend money on a TIA. But they said, no, we want it to be a 2-lane road.
This is Mr. Farias and Mr. Ruiz saying that.
But it's only up for the 90 feet, correct? It's not all the way to the end of that that roadway where the creek is. You're just talking about just in front of the school.
No,
I'm
it's
talking about
all the way?
to the creek, as I understand.
All the way to the
Okay.
creek.
But the question there is, okay, let's say that in 10 years, the owner of the land on the other side of the creek decides to, he can have 10 lots. Someone's gonna have to build a bridge. Is that bridge going to be, what, 2-lane?
Or is it-
And you already have a 4-lane or a 5-lane or a 3-lane street on this side of the creek? And then you go into,
another residential.
the other, La Bota. I haven't, I've been to La Bota once, twice over there, and streets are normal. So where is that traffic going to flow to?
Yeah, they didn't show it
To a
us.
2-lane?
It didn't show it to us.
It doesn't make any sense to have a 5-lane and then have a 2-lane. It'll be like Del Mar after the pool. It's always a huge mess there. And I travel there every day, and it's always the same thing.
Okay.
And no one wants to, either sell or, take another piece of land so that they can keep and build the second lane. And it's what, 300 feet, 500 feet long? I don't know. But
Mr. Eads, the funding is there already. Am I correct?
Yes.
Or is the
Well,
funding is
yes.
for the 5-lane designation? There's funding already put aside for
On both sides. Correct. And it's 2.5 lanes and 2.5 lanes, right? So that's how that would be split. And so you have the school pulling at you to say, this is what we see, it's what would make sense to us. You have the developer going the total opposite way, saying, not only no, but we're gonna go way the other way. And we're looking at the toolbox that we have and the abilities that we have, and we're saying, guys, we can meet you here. This is as far as we're able to go. And in all honesty, I think it's gonna take a meeting of, and I thought from the last meeting that they were gonna be here, that they were gonna have those discussions to see if there would be some wiggle room between them. And I just don't think that they're there yet. I think the school was pretty set on at least being a 4-lane, and they're pretty set on it being,
A 3-lane.
They call
Well,
it,
they-
they call it a 3-lane,
wanted
but it's
it
a
to-
2-lane.
It's a 2-lane.
They call it a 3-lane, but it's really a
But he
2
said-
because
he said they would-
he's counting the right
There
turn lane
would
as a
be
lane.
a
if he has a
5-lane at that
It's a 2-lane.
intersection, and
yeah,
then
and the
go
school
3
wants
and
the
then 2
parking.
after.
So, you're never gonna get the two sides, to agree, and, sooner or later it's gonna blow up.
they have to build a school, from what I understand. I mean, bond money is bond money,
Yeah,
I think.
we
So
have
they're-
bond money, we have.
They're gonna have to move.
We have 2 years
So
left.
the one press, I think, if I had to guess, it's gonna be the school. So, and we'll work with all parties, honestly, in an honest way. So, but when you have polarized kind of views and each one is pulling at you to go their way, the only position to take is in the
I was
middle.
trying to figure out the motivations behind the positions, and I couldn't really, of course, but in which direction, but,
Well, one wants to pay
Yeah.
less and the other one
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
care
all it
because
is.
it's not their money. It's our money.
Right. IBOC doesn't want, I don't know if I can
It's-
say
it's
it, but
obvious.
it seems like they want to save some.
Yeah, that's what it is. They want to streamline it.
Correct.
We have to be honest about it.
Yeah,
And it's that easy.
And Mr. Farias has made it that easy. No, you know, he has told us that
Straight
at this point, you know, it really makes no sense to do that. And Mr. Ruiz said, whenever there's a development later, the city can build it later. And that's where we come in, you know, where we're looked at, you guys don't plan for the future, because what will happen is when we are 10 years down the road, and we look around, the city's now charged with building out that roadway. So, not to say that that's where we're at, or our position is stuck there. I mean, we have other things that we can consider also. I mean, if you get more people out of cars, you know, you might not need that roadway.
Right, he kept citing the plan, and it's saying that the standard for that kind of road is a 2-lane, but with the very, very big but of having an incredibly robust biking and walking system that connects to the neighboring neighborhoods, which is non-existent currently. And even on the plans that he showed us, I saw one bike lane, and it was a tiny bike lane. And so when he says that, it's like, yes, but there's a whole lot also that comes with that. Is that developer gonna build that? Is the school, you know, obviously can't spend money outside that area, so it's true, but only technically, if that makes sense.
No, the school district has a 2-mile radius. Anything about 2 meters is walking.
Okay. Well,
The suburban design, right?
I mean, that's a whole dimension to this conversation.
Yeah. Here it is.
It's a collector, is that a collector?
This is a suburban,
But a collector?
minor arterial.
No, it's not, well,
He's
we're talking
saying it went
about
from a major to a minor,
a
right?
collector now.
It's gonna be urban.
It's a collector.
There you go. There's two, there we go.
It's 80
See,
feet,
so
so it's an 80
how
foot
you
right of
have
way.
this cross section, this is the 90-foot right of way that we keep
But it's
talking
an
about.
80 now.
And so this is how you have the design, possible designs of the roadways. And see what we're talking about, all this different infrastructure, none of this is identified. Only 3 simple lanes. I'm oversimplifying, right, but this is actually the way the cross section would work. Right, according to the
Oh, it's on the
comprehensive.
right side.
Well, this one, right, residential. But this is what the comprehensive plan is telling us, that this is the way it should look like with all of these amenities.
Right.
And if there's gonna be some sort of adjustments, we can work with those adjustments, right? But what we don't wanna do is go out there and just do this piece and say, well, we can just leave this out and kind of leave that out. No, if we're gonna agree to do, what you wanna call 3 lanes, okay, well, it's gonna actually have to be this 4-lane design, this cross section. If you're gonna cite the comp plan, this is the way it should be, designed.
So basically, what you keep the land to the side if it's decided to build what they call a 3-lane. That land where the 2 circles are, that will be there for future road.
Well, what they're saying is, yeah, we'll build the 3 lanes, and then all the rest will come as growth is needed. In other words, we're only gonna design, 3 of these lanes. Here, our cross-section calls for 4 lanes and bike lanes. That's the way a 90-foot right-of-way should be built. This is the way it should be.
What's the purpose of the raised median? I don't understand, those things are, what are they good for?
Typically to give pedestrian haven if they're crossing the street. So in this case, residential would be on one side, school would be on the other.
Too wide.
But there's also.
Right. So when you start to mock up and redesign, we're getting away from actually the tool that we're using. And that's where, the initial 5-lane design matches up with what the 5-lane that comes in, right? So that's one.
Mhm.
We said, coming in with 4 lanes is agreeable. Is agreeable, is agreeable. It's not agreeable. So that's what we're kind of trying to work to say, guys, if we can work ourselves based off this would work. But to a developer from the outside looking in, this is just way overdeveloped. And honestly, when you go out there and you look at the land, it does look that way. I mean, it's vacant land. There's a creek down there, or riverbed, whatever it is. I mean, it's a ditch, a big one. So it's you look at that and say, yeah, I need a key. But then 10, 20 years down the road, they're gonna look back and say, why are we studying this right? Why are we looking at this? Why are we designing for the comp plan?
Mm-hmm.
And we have to say, well, this was an exception, or this one didn't because of this.
And once you break that seal,
In
it's
20 years, we might not need it. We'll have flying cars.
That happened in 2000.
That's right.
Elon Musk,
Years-
man.
years
Elon Musk.
later, we haven't got off the ground.
That's on the record.
So a quick question I have about precedents, because I know you said something about the original agreement contractually
Yes.
was
Right.
5 lane.
Right.
So what would be the consequences of being like, okay, well, we'll just do a 2 this time? I mean, in terms of setting precedent for future development.
Yeah, no, that's, well, first of all, you have one half of that agreement, and I understand that that's pretty flat agreement that says that roadway would be designed in a certain way, which I think is 5 lanes. And so you do have one that's telling the other, you know, we came into this with that. And so first of all, they have to mutually agree to put that aside. And even if they were to put that aside, then we're gonna get into those binds where we're gonna have these issues going forward where we do set the precedent. And as we build out, our legs are cut from underneath us because he will just point to that one and say,
Well, you
going
did that.
forward, right, so the next guy's gonna have to build out, you know, instead of the 5 lane designation, which we typically would, let's say, build out another 5 lanes, everybody gets to start choosing according to their storefront.
Right.
That's really not the way roads are developed, right? So just because you choose to have a small, you know, pet store next to a Walmart, you know, your roadway doesn't come down to a 2 lane. You know, you build next to a Walmart, you're gonna, it's a very bad example, but what I'm saying is that's,
Yeah, okay.
that's the idea, you know, even going forward, so.
What I found strange also was, according to this letter, the IBOC engineers were told. They knew about the 5 lanes.
Yeah,
They
for them to
agreed
come on
it,
the final,
cost
on the
estimate.
final and say, well, you
On
know
the
what?
final, guess what? Wait, we're gonna do 2. I said,
Well,
why?
and just to let you know, procedurally, when going for plating, you have to have that agreement before you step forward, because that's in front of the planning and zoning commission. So when you step before the planning and zoning commission to seek your preliminary, or to get your preliminary, they're gonna cross all those and saying everybody's okay and good with that. But as you go to the final stage and you go to final and things kind of change, that's where I think some of the rubs started and then everything kind of shifted. And we don't mind shifting. I mean, this is our community. I'm a taxpayer too. So it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But I can't square whatever UISD is dealing with contractually, and that's their deal. So we'll let you know how things are going, and well, it'll be on the next month's agenda again. Nobody's gonna show us. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We're having steak and lobster
They'll
dinner.
probably be. Did you see,
Steak and lobster.
did you watch Troy News last night? They were talking about kids parking.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's making the news again. The whole parking situation.
Well, it is. And so we have that and we know it's a reoccurring phenomenon, especially the first couple months. What's going on though too is that we're having these, and the school's not wrong in a lot of these areas where, you know, we keep referring to them as graves, these schools at the end of these, you know, long protracted roads where they're building these schools, and then they'll build a middle school next to it and keep building out from that. So now from 2,000 students, you got 5,000 students, and you're cramming them down the same road. So you'll have that. You also, and I know this personally, like Colonel Santos, don't mean to call anybody out, but Colonel Santos, my wife works. There's a new principal, and so I know she's changed the traffic pattern this year. The principal used to be there, now she's at San Isidro. She's got a whole other set of issues at San Isidro. I don't know. But this principal has changed it, and it could work ultimately at one point if people figure it out. But when you have shifting principals to new schools, we were told, I didn't know today, but the principals have full authorities within their schools to make these decisions. And so it doesn't come from the superintendent, the board of trustees, it comes from the principals. They can make these major changes. And I just found that out this morning. And so they're able to even make these big adjustments. We have a council meeting next Monday. One of the items is to put flashing beacons in that Sun, or Winfield area to slow people down. But that's only a symptom, right? I mean, that's not the problem. The problem is the traffic pattern. And there is about opening fences again, is they're citing security concerns.
Yeah.
So we're trying to square the security concerns with traffic management. And it's not that it's not designed. We keep telling people it's not that we miss it. We don't miss it. It's there. It's designed. Now that they use it, or they use it the way it's supposed to be, that's outside of our purview. I mean, if we want, and we can, and they have, we'll start citing everybody down the street. What's going to happen is some people are going to be there the next day, and they're going to show up at 1 o'clock, 1:30 to pick up Bobby or Susie. We have the same recurring issue. But it gets a little better every year as the school year starts.
People get used to it.
People start figuring the best ways to get there, better routes.
Why doesn't the traffic department go down with the new principal and say, hey, look, this is a pattern that has been used that looks, and if they have the ultimate decision, maybe she needs to be informed.
Yeah, so we've taken that approach, and even Mr. Maria has a meeting tomorrow at one of the schools, and so we're taking that precision approach because they're all a little bit different, depending on
their location.
But yeah, we're having to go and do those adjustments and speak to the principals and for traffic management, because we also have kids, the parents just parking everywhere, and kids just crossing the street everywhere. And so, I mean, unless we want to paint crosswalks on every city block, and in the middle of blocks, that's where they usually cross, right? In the middle of the block, between cars, we get calls saying the traffic's crazy out here. We understand it, but you got 1,000 people trying to pick up their kids within 30 minutes. You said it. I'm not telling anything you guys don't already know.
No. And you're right, it's like 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
But everybody's a part of the issue, and that's why we don't even point to the schools. We have to all figure it out. I mean, that's essentially it boils down to that. And some stuff we're gonna have to retrofit. Right now, what we're trying to do is plan better, obviously, or keep planning as best as we can. But some stuff, I mean, Delmar, you've got how many schools on there? And when did they start building schools?
3.
No, pero digo, when did they were telling me United High School was there 60s, 70s?
Yeah,
The original one.
Pero ¿cómo estaba Delmar right there?
Like you
And
said,
it
road.
was totally different. It was totally different.
It was a dirt road, there was nothing past that.
Right. And so as you build the schools, you build the magnet. You build the magnet, you build the cars. You build the cars, you build the problems. And so we're trying to even solve a lot of that. I keep looking over there because we've got a challenge to start getting people figuring ways so we can get people out of cars and get people more comfortable with riding or walking to school. And yes, we need
Riding a
shade.
bike.
Yes.
You ask for insurance, the kids park outside.
Oh, that's right, that was that,
So
And the lady didn't mention that last time.
Hey, one more quick thing on the calendaring. On the first, so Ed is going to send out a recurring, so that means it'll be on the calendar automatically every single month. Make sure you accept the first one, and then if you can't make that one, go and delete just that one. Because if you say, oh, I can't make it next month, you'll not accept the entire recurring calendar. So make sure you accept the first one, and then go in. If you can't make a meeting, delete that one.
And if it doesn't come from America, it's a Russian.
yeah, or me, you, yeah.
Maybe one of the two.
Fucking Jew.
So, I don't know.
Okay.
So have we reached our end of our agenda? Okay.
Hey.